Gail Monty Fall, and then two commissioners, Stan Buxa and Brian Miller, are with us.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
I see it is 7 o'clock, so we were going to go ahead and get started. First of all, thank you guys for coming this morning. We'll get into talking about the Blue Line Watercourse stuff here in a little while, because there's some other people that are supposed to be coming as well and want to hear the conversation. So with that, we will get started. Call the meeting to order. Any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Larry, I need to add the Department of Water Resources Administrative Code amendments to new business.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty. Anything else? Okay. Motion to approve the minutes. We did have an addition to the minutes on a legal description of the cleanouts on Oak Creek Drain. We had to add in the section 26 and 27 that we talked about last time. That would be going through like the Kirkheide property and Sally's, southeast of town here. Okay, with that, a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Okay, open mic. Anybody at this point in time have anything they'd like to say? Is Gary? Gary, you got anything?
No, at this time.
Okay. All right, we'll just move into old business then. Thomas isn't on here yet?
Nope, don't see him. Send him a text.
Okay. I guess we're just going to move right into 55th Avenue crossing. The only update as of right now with that is the appeal has been filed, correct, Gail?
The appeal has been filed, and the initial brief, which is our brief as the appellants, is due August 27th.
Okay, and the Association of Water Resource Districts is going to have a board meeting on Friday morning, it sounds, to talk about them filing an amicus brief as well. And Dan, is it Gusted? I believe it is his name? Gosted from Grand Forks. He's an attorney that's actually worked with us before, if you remember him, on a complaint with Bollingburg and Lease. He's will probably, if they decide they're going to go ahead with that, I'll be the one that will probably write the brief. So, but that'll be decided on Friday morning. So, with that, do you have any other updates with that, Kale?
No, I don't. Dan has given the association a proposal, a cost proposal that I think is very fair and reasonable. I talked to Dan about the case. He said that he represents a bunch of water resource boards in the Northeast, and he told me that they regularly use that obstruction statute with road authorities up there. So it was good talking to him. I think he'll do a nice job if the board authorizes it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Kayla and I did have a discussion as far as, if the association doesn't want to pay for that, or pay for all of it or whatever. And do you want to just visit with that a little bit, Kale?
Yeah. The association's got a pretty limited annual budget, so the question had come up, whether or not other parties like the Water Resource District or anybody else, even non-parties, could contribute financially towards the cost of that brief. The answer is yes, they can, but anybody outside of the association that contributes, that has to be disclosed in the brief that the association files. And so, for the Wells County Water Resource District to contribute, I think it hurts, not strengthens the brief, because we're a party to the case. And so I talked to Larry about encouraging the board to get involved, because that opinion, if it stands, could have some pretty significant issues for water management statewide. And unless we're going to be relegated to designing drains that don't cross roadways, that opinion is going to be problematic. So hopefully the association just agrees to invest the money and weigh in.
And we do a lot of work for that association as well during legislative sessions, and spend a lot of time down there testifying and different things with that. Okay. Let's move into the Sauter complaint right away then. You want to go through that, Kale, real quick?
Sure. So the board, might recall that we were following our complaint investigation policy at the last meeting, which was the second meeting after the complaint was filed. The first meeting, Alan Sauter came in, we spoke to him. The second meeting, we invited the responding parties, the Jeff Mertz on behalf of Mertz Brothers, Chad Weckeryly on behalf of Weckeryly Farms. There was a lot of discussion about what the cause of the issues on the Sauter property were. The respondents were generous enough to provide some information about their tile systems to help ease the burden of the investigation. That information was fact-checked and verified. At the end of that discussion, Alan agreed at the last board meeting to withdraw his complaint. In exchange, Mertz and Weckeryly said that they would contribute money towards an engineering study in order to kick off either a maintenance project or an assessment drain to improve the outlet for the watershed here for Sauter and for everybody else. After the meeting, Alan called Larry and changed his mind, and he said, "I'm not withdrawing my complaint." And so Larry did provide him information showing that both projects are compliant with the Century Code. The Weckeryly permit, or the Weckeryly tile system, was built after obtaining a permit from this board, and the system appears to be in compliance with that permit. The Mertz brothers submitted a permit application and then withdrew it and downsized their project to less than the 80-acre threshold. And so at the time that they constructed their project, no permit was required because their project was less than 80 acres. Also at that time, there was no requirement that they even provide notice to the Water Resource District. So neither system is out of compliance with Title 61. We don't have any local rules outside of the statute that regulate tile. And so Larry had asked Apex Engineering to coordinate with me on preparing draft findings and an order detailing all that history and then dismissing the complaint based on the finding that both systems comply with the requirements of Century Code. So those were prepared. They're sent out to the board for review ahead of today's meeting. If the board has any questions on those, we can talk about those. I can review them with you now if you want me to review them. But since you had them in advance and they're based on the history that you all witnessed, ultimately what I'm recommending is the board adopt those draft findings in order and direct our office to send out the notice of decision dismissing the complaint.
Did you all have a chance to read through all that?
Yeah, I read through it.
Yeah. It's nothing in there that we haven't already talked about. So I guess at this time, I'm going to ask for a motion to adopt that findings.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, moving on. Harvey Dam update. How's that coming along, Chad?
Excuse me. Kevin got done, obviously, with his stuff, and I assume he sent it over.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's all I know.
Looks
He
good.
completed it. Yeah, I drove by, I didn't stop, but I drove by and thought it looked like he got it all. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Now we just gotta get somebody in there to fix that fence.
Yeah, and I don't know who to ask locally. That would fit the fence.
Louts don't do any of that anymore.
They don't
Matter
do
Grant
that.
Supply doesn't do that.
I don't know. I got them Dakota fence to be the only ones, you know. But I don't know if they come to do something like that.
Got the air knocked off, he's gonna fix the fence around the duck pond.
Oh, really?
Got
Okay,
We'll talk about it.
okay,
Yeah, well, obviously,
okay.
so you have any interest in doing that then too? What about the rail too? The same thing, we have to get that, get to that handrail.
Yes.
I mean,
that's-
I looked at it when I was there close. It's not like real bad, but yes, it is not gonna get any better. It really be that terrible hard to fix either, just cut a chunk out of there and either pour a weld or some kind of a clamp on new one from section or whatever. I passed the air about that too.
Yeah, may as well. If we can find somebody local, it'll be a lot cheaper than bringing somebody, because
Yeah.
any portable welding people, the closest one would be New Rockford.
I'll ask Aaron that too.
Okay. Okay. Because we can get rail built in Jamestown if we had to. Dan Pollins, they build all kinds of railings for different different things. So we just have to get the measurements and stuff off of there.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Al. Okay.
It's not the whole thing, obviously, it's just that one side.
Mhm.
It's starting to- I don't know why just the one is so bad there, but.
Well, yeah, I'm not even gonna say that. When you get water up on steel all the time, that it
Yeah,
messes it out.
Yeah.
So, Culvert Inspections, obviously, we haven't done anything with that because the water cut doesn't quit running, but. Okay. Thomas still is not with us.
No, I didn't answer that text either. I like him.
No, wonder what happened. Wonder if we could get Jennifer to come on here.
I'll send her a quick note.
Okay.
Yep.
Moving on, we talked about the Amicus brief, then drain assessments. We'll go through that real quick. Is that in our packet, Tammy?
It is.
Oh, here's,
That's that one, I got multiple colors on it, lists all the drains. I said you had it
And
stuck together.
okay. Okay, we'll go through Crystal Lake Township first. We might be doing some work in there this year, but it won't be that much because that drain is not that long. Drain 1.
You have to put $2 on, you have to.
Oh, yeah, yep. And that's typically the highest we go
Yeah.
here.
So you'll need a motion for that.
Yes. And the 52,000 is the $2 per acre, correct?
Correct.
Yep, okay.
Well, that's what we currently have in that account.
Oh, okay. Okay, what, $2 per acre, what does that generate per year? It's like 32,000 roughly, is that correct?
30-some thousand acres in it, but it's not all
Yeah.
assessed at that rate.
Right. I think it's like 31 or 32,000.
Are we done over there, Schmidt?
No.
No, I didn't think so.
No, between the railroad and that, where we put those new culverts in, it's gotta be cleaned out yet.
You never did any work from there?
Not last fall, cause it was really wet last fall.
Right.
It has been proven to be. But I think he's just gonna have to go in and dump the slop up on top and let it dry out, clean it up later. Cause obviously it's holding the water back.
We collected about 66,000.
66,000 a year.
this last assessment we did,
Okay,
that was $2 an acre.
okay, just got a text. Thomas will be on it here shortly.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion to keep the $2 an acre assessment on drain one?
I'll make it.
Okay, a second?
And that's what we had last.
Yeah. That's the max.
This is my money.
Okay, second. Okay,
I wanted to leave that.
all in favor signify by saying aye.
$2 gets me clean.
Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Okay, Hamberg Drain, we don't have really anything on there right now.
And you have 15,000, a little over 15,000 in
Yeah.
that account. You're not doing any work in there,
Just spraying,
so that'll be fine for this year.
I think so. We'll leave that one. Fessenden Drain, currently assessed $20 per parcel. That'd be the parcels in town and $1 per acre. And
You have $3,800 in the account.
yeah, I think we should run that one more year because we got some work that's going on in this drain as well. So I'll need a motion for the Fessenden Drain.
Yeah.
Second. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Hamberg West Norway. We have 5104 in there roughly right now. Currently assessed at 50 cents an acre. And
Any work to be done in there?
just spraying, and I think that's already done. That's a short drain, so. Somebody want to make a motion to take that assessment off for a year?
Well, you just need a motion to put it back on,
Okay,
because we do it year by year.
okay. So we're gonna pull that one off. Heimdal Drain. We might need to put 50 cents on that because of spraying on it this year. Somebody want to make a motion for that? Okay, second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Hurdsfield Drain, automatically assessed.
Yeah, that's just,
Okay, Oak Creek. Oh, somebody want to make the motion that we just keep the $2 per acre on there?
It's recommended that we add an additional.
oh, that we add $2 an acre this year for 2026, because we have to do assessments year by year.
So it just stay at $2.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Second.
One more year.
Well, if
As
the
we get
court
the money
rules in
back.
our favor, then we can pull it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although we've got some clean outs and of course then we had a culvert last fall in there too. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carried.
And the largest share of that is still that 55th Avenue crossing.
Okay. Hopefully people get here soon. Let's just move into the bills, get that out of the way as well. Apex Engineering bill, so we want to make a motion for that one?
Yep.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Rinky Noonan bill.
I'll move.
Second.
Yep.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Minnesota Valley testing lab.
Yeah,
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Kevin's Landscaping.
Aye.
Okay.
Approve.
Second.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carried. And our Water Resource District Dues Association. So I make a motion for that.
Yeah.
That went up by $25 from last year.
I'll
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Okay,
Now go back to Hurdsfield and we'll just have Cal bring up that video.
yeah, let's just go back to Hurdsfield, Cal, and
Okay.
then hopefully Thomas will be on here shortly.
Oh,
Then just play that video real quick if you could.
Okay, I will pull it up. Give me 1 second.
Morning, Thomas.
Good morning.
Okay. Seeing the video now on your screen?
Yep. That is the water that's coming into Hurdsfield from the Silver Lake. Corey Hunt sent me this here yesterday. Wanted to give a quick brief on what's going on with Hurdsfield with the pumping and stuff real quick.
Well, with rainfall, we've been able to keep the pumps on, but I think we're teetering on the edge of whether we gotta shut them down or not, but we've talked to our electric, Dr. Aven Wise, and we're trying to get some of this stuff changed with our sulfate levels, so we keep those pumps running, because it's gonna turn into a problem. Shortly with that amount of water coming in, and if we can't run these pumps, we're just, I don't know what's gonna happen with it, but what you drive by on the road now is just gonna get exemplified shortly. So that's what we're trying to do with it, trying to get it so we keep these pumps running till freeze up, but every year we've been restricted by sulfate levels that, that really don't reflect anything, that we just can't pump them. Run them for a couple weeks and we gotta shut them off again. So, I don't know, but we've been watching this down south at Chaseley, and I mean, that Chaseley Road going south, if you drive down there, I mean, if that wasn't running out, that would take that road out.
And the way it looks, Corey sent me another picture as well on that, and it looks like the water must be right up to the very edge of it now.
Yeah.
Because you can see that the gravel is wet on the
Yeah.
edge of the road.
So I mean, it's a big deal going south of Chaseley, that Silver Lake, that's lapping up against the road, you get south of Corey Hart's down there, and that's where it's just, so this is all coming into Hurdsfield right now, and it's gonna keep coming till freeze up, I mean, it just is, so. So we're trying to work with
Getting all the rains we're getting down there too.
So,
We are discharging out of Hurdsfield Lake. I don't know what the actual flow would be, but 6-8 inches of culvert or the gates open.
yeah,
So we are best guess 2,500 gallons a minute, maybe
yeah,
something like that. We're discharging out with the pumps at about 2,200 a minute. So we're not. We finally got below the level on East Lake that we could start the release water from Hurdsfield Lake. That was about 2 weeks ago,
yeah.
something like that.
Because the sulfate levels don't limit us, it's U.S. Fish and Wildlife limit, we're only allowed to let water come into East Lake when the level gets down to a certain. So we can't just let that go whenever we want either, so.
Which one's East Lake that you're talking about?
Yeah,
What is that? Or which one?
it's just east of the Hurdsfield Lake. That's where the pumps are set up at, just west of Chaseley, within a mile. So, John Roller's old place there.
Yeah, I was just over there.
So, yeah, it's a problem. I don't know, Thomas, have you heard any more from the DEQ?
I've had a couple of phone conversations with the North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality. There's 2 new people involved with the project. I guess kind of overseeing their side of things in this project. One retired, one got promoted. That was there before. So there's 2 new people. They're trying to get their hands around what this project is right now. So they are kind of asking for some information. We're giving that information to them. One person from the DEQ will be making a site visit in the near future, just to kind of get familiar with what this is. So I know they're looking at ways of doing things, but there's also things that they need to follow too from a federal side of things too. So sounds like they'll try to work with us, so as much as they can.
And you'll let us know when that site visit's gonna take place, correct?
I don't know. I guess I can request that and have them notify either me or you when that happens.
Okay, that would be good.
Okay.
Cause I think it's important that, you know, they see the whole scope of that situation, not just the lake itself. But,
Yep. Exactly.
I think it'd be good if somebody took them south of Chasely.
Yep.
Because they need to understand, you drive by the highway, it doesn't look any different than it did a year ago, but when you go south of Chasely, it's a whole different, it's what's coming.
Okay,
South and Devil's Lake pumping all year, and we can't. It's crazy.
yeah,
I think Devil's Lake is.
more political pull there. It's usually the way it works. Any other updates on Hurdsfield, Thomas?
The only other update would be with that monitoring equipment, if we want to move on to that, or
Okay, yeah, we'll have to.
So question, Thomas, do you think just changing the batteries?
Hold on, we may have lost them. Hold on, I'm trying to get back in here. My system's having a fit.
Morning, Philip.
just in the alarm was in a different room, so, yeah. Okay.
Okay, sorry, we lost you for a minute. Our system had a hiccup.
Back.
Thomas, is there any way we can just change the batteries, or do you think Devin's gonna have to go swimming to change those cables?
Not a problem either way.
Yeah, whatever, let's do this.
You can try the batteries first with the monitoring station number 1. To me, from what it looks like, the modem has power. It's the communication from the modem to that probe is the issue. And then monitoring station number 2 is just, it looks like the batteries are dead. And all those batteries look like they're expensive, but they last a long, they hold a consistent voltage for a long period of time in varying temperatures. So that's kind of why those are recommended and are good. So you don't have to go out there as much. With that quote, that's just the equipment and material itself. It's quote with the person from tech sales yesterday, and he said add about $100 to that quote for shipping due to batteries and everything else. Shipping costs have been going up a lot last year or two. So
That's an understatement.
So that quote would be adding about $100 for shipping. He said that's usually about safe if you're going to approve a cost. But
Okay, that's it for Hurdsfield then, correct?
You'll have to accept that.
Yeah, I guess we just take care of that real quick too. Somebody want to make a motion to accept this quote for the equipment, for the batteries and the cable?
When's this coming in then, if we accept it?
What's that?
When does this all come? Like,
I don't know, how long will it take to get here?
the batteries can be, I think those are not as long as a lead time. When I spoke with In Situ on the cable, it sounded like the lead time, it's a high demand item, so it'd be a few weeks before we could get that.
Okay, why don't we make it?
Batteries,
I
really.
just want to mentally prepare myself for what I'm getting myself into.
Well, we're somebody want to make a motion that we purchase that stuff?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign, motion carried. Okay, we will move into our part of the meeting where we're going to talk about the Blue Line water courses. In your packets, Kale just kind of gave you a sheet, just kind of highlighting like snagging and clearing and assessment drain type stuff. So with that, Kale, I will let you just kind of give us a brief rundown on this, kind of what you put together.
Let me just put it up on the screen here. So, Larry had called and kind of asked, what can we do as a water board on these natural water courses that have cattails and accumulated sediment? And I said there's really three options. Two are for the water board. One is really for private landowners on their own. But from a permitting standpoint, when you're just removing accumulated sediment and vegetation, that's maintenance of a natural water course. No permit is needed from the state to do that, as long as you have landowner permission to do it. So then the question becomes funding. And that's where the Water Resource District can step in. There's really two ways that this is done. We can work towards creating a snagging and clearing assessment district. This is snagging and clearing obstructions in the water course like fallen trees. It can include removing beaver dams. It can include some sediment removal. It cannot be used to construct a regular managed drain or to be reconstructing an existing assessment drain. That's separate. We can talk about that next. But think of this as like a temporary, one-time, short-term improvement to the existing condition of a natural water course. So it's got to be a natural water course, and then the work has to be limited just to maintenance. The funding that can be generated is we have authority if the project costs less than $100,000 to approve that one-time assessment district after noticing and holding a hearing to everybody in the assessment district, and then approving it by a 2/3 vote of both the County Water Resource Board and the county commissioners. So we would notice and hold that hearing together, and that's what gives the water board and the county the authority to levy a special assessment not in excess of that $100,000. There's also some limitations on a per acre and per property basis to that. We can't in any 1 year assess more than 50 cents an acre on ag land, or 50 cents for every $500 of valuation on non-agriculture land within that assessment district. So you can spread that assessment over a number of years. Most of the time it's 2 to 3 years max, but we have to look both at the total project cost limit and the per acre and per property limit that's in statute as we set up that assessment district. Just a little bit overview of the process. Those proceedings are initiated by the board. Much like assessment drains, you're going to need to appoint an engineer to figure out what the starting point, stopping point, and alignment is, what the cost estimate is, map out the watershed and the benefited area for the project. And then we do have to comply with the same statute and century code that says we have to show what the benefits to each of the tax properties are, and that the proposed assessment is going to be exceeded by the benefits to those properties. So unfortunately, there is some administrative costs in terms of engineering, administrative notice and hearing type work, and legal type work that is the same as assessment drains, but just not as intense. So not as costly, but there still is a cost to doing it. We can't have a contractor come in and say, yeah, I'll do this whole project for $100,000. That would price us out of being able to use this statute. Like I said, the engineering requirements, they're minimal compared to an assessment drain, but we still do need an engineers involved to make sure we're complying with the permitting laws and that the elevations are limited to maintenance. Once the project is done and paid for, the obligations of the Water Resource Board end. If it fills in again and 5 years or 10 years or 20 years down the road, it needs clean out again, we have to do this whole process over. There's not the ability to do an ongoing repair or maintenance levy. This is a one-time type deal. We still need to have a public hearing, but like I said, the notice requirements and the procedural costs of that are much less than an assessment drain, and it is just one hearing, and it would be jointly held between the Water Board and the county commissioners. The appeal rights here are limited. Landowners can challenge the order approving this assessment district in district court, but that's really limited just to a finding of whether or not the board followed the statutory procedures. So it's a much narrower chance of appeal than we have in assessment drains. There is 50% state cost share funding available, but it's limited to removing and disposing of fallen trees and any associated debris. So sediment removal of cattails, removing other plant vegetation, that's not eligible for cost share from the state. So your engineers would have to put together some survey data and some information to show which portion of the contract is related to stuff that's eligible for cost share and which portion of the contract is not eligible. So then we compare that with assessment drains. I think the board is pretty familiar with assessment drains, so I won't go through this in as much detail, but assessment drains are much better projects for permanent solutions, for flood control, for addressing erosion, for draining wetlands and surface waters, and managing ag and other stormwater runoff. It's a permanent project. If it's approved by the landowners, it includes the ability to generate levies in the future for long-term maintenance and operation of the drain. You can spread that initial assessment for a term of up to 30 years, and that term is usually set depending on what the cost of the project is and what the general tax burden is for those properties that are paying the most. It's a much more formal process than a staging and clearing district. This usually takes more like 1.5 to 2 years to approve, whereas a staging and clearing district, might take several months or maybe half a year. And that's because on assessment drains, we have to notice and hold 2 hearings. We have to have the hearing on the engineering report. We likely have an optional landowner informational meeting before that. If it passes the vote, then we have to have a second hearing on the assessments. But you do have more authority with this. You can do more than just snagging and clearing and maintenance. You're entitled to do improvements to deepen and widen the existing water course, to drain through virgin ground. You're not limited to doing work within a natural water course. You can do whatever is permittable by the Department of Water Resources, and that permit is based primarily on ensuring that the outlet is adequate and there's no adverse, uncompensated downstream impacts. Once that project is established, then it's managed by the Water Resource Board in perpetuity. The landowners also do have a little bit more rights to appeal here. They can again challenge the order, saying we didn't follow statute and how the district was set up, but they also get a right that they don't have on staging and clearing districts to ask the Department of Water Resources to view the determination of their property benefits. So they have a little bit more due process rights there. And then unlike assessment staging and clearing districts, there is no cap on the cost of assessment drain projects, except that we have to show that the benefits to the parcels exceed the estimated project costs. And then if that project is approved, there is a cap on future maintenance levies that's capped at $4 an acre. And we can't generate a repair fund that's greater than what that $4 an acre cap could generate for 6 consecutive years. So we have to spend that money as we generate it. And then finally, the state did increase the cost share for assessment drains up from 45% to 60%. So if you're willing to put in the extra cost and the extra work, the state is offering a little bit more money to do that type of work than is available for snagging and clearing districts. So I think the key with each of these is to talk to the local landowners that are affected. If it's not a natural water course, then snagging and clearing isn't an option. And so the landowners are left to manage it on their own or look at an assessment drain project. If it is a natural water course, then I think we can give them this information and we can talk to them about these options. But if the project is going to cost, close to that 100,000, and I would say, anything north of 70,000, then again, snagging and clearing is not a likely viable option. We'll probably have to look for an assessment drain project just because of the cost. But if it is something that's, closer to that 70, 75,000, then, perhaps we could get by with cost share and with the cap, managing it as a one-time assessment district if the county commissioners and the water board felt that that was right for that situation. So you can keep this handout, pass it out, share it with landowners, share it with the full county commissioner board. But what questions do you have about these options that we can talk about?
I'm just going to make a brief statement here real quick. I've been getting a number of calls from different landowners throughout the county, actually. We had the discussion north of Hurdsfield and the Sauter property, making that into assessment district. We've dealt with the lower Rocky Run. You guys sprayed, some area over just southeast of Fessenden here on the Rocky Run a few years ago, if you remember that. We were approached by the DOT about spraying the river up here north of Highway 52 a few years ago. So there's get to be a lot of issue with cattails in these in rivers, the natural water courses, and the problem is we don't have the funding to pay for this stuff. A lot of it I think can be helped just by spraying it, but how do we pay for that? County commissioners don't have extra money. We don't have extra money, and we can't take money out of assessment drains that's strictly for assessment drains. So that's the reason that we had this program put together today. So I guess is there any questions from you guys? I'm assuming, Monty, you're here because of that?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's a major problem over in your area.
Right, yeah. Well, I'm next to Sauter.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I was actually down to Apex Engineering here a few weeks ago. We sat down when we were dealing with the Sauter complaint. We sat down, we looked at the elevations of that area, and you're talking like a 5-foot elevation drop in 4 miles. So you get a bunch of cattails in there, it really slows things up bad.
Well, the question I have though is that cattails actually have saved a lot of roads. Right now, you go west of my yard, that road's been taken out maybe once or twice. You clean cattails out and it's just gonna take that road out a lot faster, a lot quicker.
Typically though, the water starts to move sooner. When you get full of cattails, it's got to fill up to a certain point to get enough head pressure to push through that. And then once it does push through there, then it really comes quick.
But I mean, that's one example. I'm sure there's lots of situations where roads would be a question. The drains, the ability of the culverts to take the water.
We did some cattail spraying on the lower Rocky Run here 4 years ago, and it helped with that situation.
Yeah.
Because now it's got a channel that's clear, that if the water, as soon as it starts to melt or whatever, the water just starts to run and it goes in a more orderly fashion.
Yeah.
Prior to that, like I said, it has to build up and get so much head pressure, and then when it does go, this is like flushing a toilet then.
Yeah.
Are they still clear? How many years did you spray?
We sprayed that one time that we, cost shared with that,
Yeah.
with you guys, and it'll last
3 years?
like 2 to 3 years. It helps, but then when as wet as we are now, it comes back,
Right.
because it's constant water in it. It never dries out anymore. know, when you get 5 inches of rain per month, why, that doesn't help things.
My property's actually been essentially flooded for 10 years. I used to make hay there every summer my whole life, and it hasn't even been accessible for haymaking.
Mhm.
Sauter's has not been flooded. His is a salt question. Just wondering if that's affecting us.
That's kind of what we saw when we went out and looked at it.
Yeah.
And then it didn't help that situation in that area either when the wildlife came in and took that dam out either.
Yeah, but I'm not familiar with that.
I wasn't either until we had this meeting
Last month,
last month.
and that dam actually held a fair amount of water.
Up on Leroy Falls.
Yeah.
There, yeah, yeah.
But it's not functioning now. It's out.
No, it's out. On that map, there is a picture of what it was.
Yeah.
So anybody have any questions on?
Is it open?
Yeah, go ahead.
So just go to like kind of down in our area of the pipes then, where do you decide where to stop, and is there like liability beyond that? I'm talking like spraying or the snagging or the assessment district. I mean, say, you know, obviously I'm upstream from a lot of his stuff, so here I come, and then I get to X point in the road. Is that engineered past that? Like, say you stop at this section line on this like snagging clearing or spraying, or, you know, I'm talking like one of these more not permanent solutions.
Mhm.
Is there liability down to, like, say you start blowing out highways, blowing out roads, because I mean, the pipes and goes, so like, you know,
It's James down.
yeah, so that's what where's that liability stop with like this
You wouldn't,
temper?
you wouldn't think it would
Well-
be if they're just clearing something
Right, that's
out.
what I'm, yeah, but I mean, I know like Devin can attest to it, like, we have tons of drop, then it stops, and then it picks up again, you know, it gets real flat for what, 10, 12 miles? And then it's, so I just didn't know if like that initial, I don't wanna be held, I don't want the townships mad, I don't want anyone, if you stop at this point, I know I'd be happy, but that ain't probably, I know there'd be a lot of people not happy if I'd stop at here, you know what I mean? So I'm thinking like bigger picture, like,
My thoughts would be that you'd start at the bottom end and work your way back.
Right, the Century Code and the DWR permitting only applies to improvements, not maintenance. And that's because the improvement has the ability to increase the peak flow and the volume of flow. And that's where liability attaches. If a tree has fallen and caused a temporary restriction of water, I mean, we're gonna work with Apex Engineering and the board and the contractor to be smart about the way we restore that condition, but the board is only restoring it back to its natural condition. If that is causing roads to wash out downstream, you know, that's more likely because of something else going on than just restoring the natural condition of the ditch.
so in your mind, where would you consider the bottom, Sykes?
County line, because that's as far as we can go.
Oh, fair enough.
Not to be a smart aleck.
Put it onto the east that way. No, I'm just curious what you thought, because I know we've talked, there's some problems, but it's so tough with these huge water years, like, you don't want it. It's tension down there, it's like, just like, well, where do you stop and go, you know? And I know I've thrown out some of my just beginning ideas to Evan, and he's like, wow, we need to keep going past that, and I get that, because it's just gonna destroy it, you know? Or I shouldn't say destroy it, it's just, you'd like to get more people involved, but the bigger you get, the less chance anything ever will happen.
So I have a question. What does it take to become an assessment drain project?
You want to explain that process?
Yeah, so it typically starts with a petition by at least 2 landowners, although it would be wise if you're going to petition for that to get as many of the landowners in the watershed to sign on and support that petition as you can, because it ultimately leads to a vote of the landowners who have to vote to tax themselves to create that project. But it starts with a petition and with a bond to cover the preliminary engineering, legal, and administrative expenses. But once that petition is filed, those preliminary expenses are, an engineer gets appointed to design at a high level the project and look at what the project benefits are, map out the watershed and the benefited area, help the board through creating a list showing what the theoretical increase in value to all the properties would be because of this created outlet, and then estimate the costs and make sure that the project benefits exceed those costs, and then preparing the hearing notice and the ballots and sending that out to all the landowners that are proposed to be taxed. And then those landowners file those ballots, they have a deadline to file them, and then the board opens the ballots, counts them. More than 50% of the votes filed have to be in favor of the project for it to be approved. And that vote is a weighted vote, meaning you get one vote per dollar proposed tax to your land. So those who benefit the most and pay the most taxes for the project have the most say in terms of the weighted vote. But that whole process to get to that point typically takes, a year to a year and a half to go through all those proceedings and then get to a point where we're ready to put the thing up for bids for a contractor. It's probably, I think we kind of say, although we between Apex Engineering and my firm, we've built quite a few assessment drains across the state, so we've got a lot of good data to back it up. I think at a high estimate, it adds about 30% to the contractor cost to use the power of government to create an assessment drain. But we try to strive to get that closer to 25-20%. We're usually pretty good at that. But there's a lot of things that are outside of your control. Like Hurdsfield, for example, we ran into an unanticipated water quality issue. I've got some other counties in the state where, we've run into landowners who just refuse to respond to our correspondence about the right-of-way that's needed. And we can eventually get that right-of-way, we can eventually condemn it if they don't respond, but having to go through all that process just drives up the cost without adding any value to the landowner who's giving up the right of way for the project. So, there's all those steps that we have to go through, but it is good for establishing a long-term project. It is good when you've got, one or two landowners that you need their cooperation and they just refuse to help everybody out in the watershed. It's good for that, and it's good for these projects that are a little bit bigger in scope.
We currently have one in southern part of the county south of Sykeston that's in this process right now. They're doing the high-level engineering study to see the feasibility of it.
So why are they doing that?
Flood control, water, roads.
And that's 60%
Yeah.
cost shared by the state.
If they decide to go through that, it'll be paid for 60% of it by the state.
At least for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
It used to be 45.
Yeah.
But there's, question of whether the legislature will support keeping it at that level, and whether the oil tax revenues will be sufficient enough to support these projects. So just keep that in mind, that I think there's talk that they're anticipating an increase in these projects that go off this cost share, and that funding source is slowly declining. So those that get initiated now and submitted first have the best chance of getting approved. I think it's going to be there for at least 2 years, but you can't guarantee or predict that.
How far in this process do you have to be locked into that 60? Once the petition is signed, or is that not accurate?
Well, the Thomas, help me here if I'm wrong, but you can apply for cost share on your pre-construction engineering, which is one of the reasons why that at the time the landowners are voting, the engineering plans are such high level. Of course, we'd love to spend a bunch of money and have a perfect set of details at the time the landowners are voting. But if we do that, A, it costs more money, and then B, that's not eligible for cost share, because I don't think the state approves anything for cost share until it passes the land on revoke. But once you pass the land on revoke, then you're locked in and you have a contract to finish the engineering work that it takes to get it ready for public bidding, and then everything after that, construction-wise, is all cost shared as well.
So from day of petition to vote, is it safe to say 18 months? Or is that not accurate?
No, I would say, maybe depending on the complexity of the project, somewhere between that 6 months to a year, maybe closer to a year. Thomas, do you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
I also asked Patrick Doan to join us today and talk a little bit about what it costs to spray this stuff. You had a chance to kind of put some numbers together.
Yeah, so if we're going 24, 25 feet wide on a mile, that'd be about 3 acres. So with that 3 acres, just the chemical cost this year, it might change. It always changes, but roughly $115 per mile. And then I guess typical application cost for us is an hourly basis for this type of work. So we're at $400 an hour is what our hourly rate is.
Now, can you, like, say you set up, can you fly a mile back and then fly a mile ahead, like from one road to another?
It really depends on the terrain and whether we can keep line of sight with the drone. Connectivity gets worse as you drop below hills and you can't see it anymore.
Yep.
So access is a big thing. We have to be able to get close enough to spray them. And then that also affects how productive we are. So how many miles we can get done in an hour depends how good our access is. So it's really variable.
I think on most of these natural water courses, there's probably a roadway at least every 2 miles or something, I'm thinking. Because when you're in these areas that they're really flat, so can you line of sight, can you see a mile to your drone?
A mile's pushing it, 3/4 of a mile.
Okay.
If we need to, we can find other options to get closer.
Okay. Okay, you ride your 4-wheeler out in the middle, huh? Okay. You've flown quite a few drains for us now. Do you have any idea how many miles per hour that you can do, roughly?
That's hard. How many miles do you have any idea that we sprayed last year? Because I know how many hours we sprayed, I just can't remember how many miles.
I would say that we had to be about 60 miles last year. I would say pretty close.
So that probably averaged 1.5 miles per hour, I would think. We were just under 40 hours last year.
Okay. Okay. Of course, you have a lot more driving around with that as well.
Yeah.
Or is that just flight time you're talking?
We go from the first flight to the last flight. So if we have to drive in between, we're still billing for that.
Okay. Okay. So that would add a lot of time because you're all
Pretty
over the
spread
county.
out. Okay.
It's not like you're following a natural water course then. That'd be a lot more money that way. Okay, well, that just gives us a rough idea to do that. Okay. Okay. Anybody have any other questions?
How do you determine the assessed area? in this
By
type of
watershed.
projects? I know, but where do you start and stop? Is it just whatever we want?
No. Thomas, do you want to briefly explain that? Or Kale, either one, it doesn't matter.
I guess starting and stopping, kind of deciding on that, it'd be kind of going off of where you're going to see your benefit, where that cost benefit is at. It all depends on the terrain, case by case scenario.